Welcome back. I'm Mel Robbins, and I'm teaching you a theory called the let them theory that is something that I use nonstop. My kids also use this when I become an overbearing mother. And I had just explained that the let them theory is used in a moment where you feel yourself ramping up the control. You're just wrapped around the axle. Your knickers are in a pinch. You can't believe so-and-so did such and such a, or you're just thinking about it. Why didn't they invite me? Why does everybody get together? Why does my roommate always do this? She was in town and she didn't call me. Let them. Let them. Other people get to be themselves. Other people get to make decisions. The let them theory is a way for you to address your own anxiety about uncertainty. It is a way for you to let people be who they are. It is a way for you to get out of other people's business and stick to your own business. And it is a way for you to create emotional peace, to not whip yourself into a frenzy, to not care about things that are really not your concern, and to stop this reflexive need to control or comment on everyone around you. I just, when I looked at the post that we did on Instagram, there were 9,800 comments this morning on this thing. It's only been up for a week. That's how much this struck a nerve. 9,800 comments in 1 week. That's incredible. Here's a great comment. Let people be who they are, because sometimes you need that person that way. So let them. It doesn't have to be everything, a bad thing or anything. It's so true. I think about that with my husband. I used to get so annoyed because the guy's a slow processor. Just really, like, you can almost hear the wheels turning as he's thinking about something. And he asks a lot of questions. And it used to drive me fucking crazy. I just would be like, could you spit it out? Like, what are you thinking about? And I realized I need him to be that way because I am moving at the speed of light. One of us has to have our feet on the ground. One of us has to be thinking through decisions. One of us has to make sure that the bills get paid and the dog gets to the vet and that the things that we're doing are thought through. And so I use the let them theory to just let Chris be who he is and stop making him wrong and stop trying to control him. And it certainly creates more peace for him. And it also allows me to be more present. So let's talk about the 3 ways that you are going to use the let them theory in your life. The first one is detachment. Use the let them theory to detach yourself from the emotional or mental struggle that you can get yourself into when you're thinking about either what other people are doing or how things should be going, and to just tap in to emotional peace. Sufama, I'm saying it wrong, wrote this on Instagram. I've wasted a lot of time, Mel, and energy feeling inadequate due to my expectations of other people. It hurts. Yet I've learned to make the conscious choice to keep doing me regardless of their behavior. It's fucking hard to be good at this. It requires practice. And you know what else I think it requires? When you realize this strikes a nerve for all of us, that we all have trouble with this, because of course you have expectations. I'll give you an example. Have you ever gone to a wedding? And it's a wedding where a lot of your friends from college or a certain period of your life are going to be there, and you're so excited because you think that you're all going to be seated together? This always happens to me and Chris. Always. And you go to the wedding and you go up to that beautiful display that people do now where everybody's cards are in a place to find out where you're sitting, and you pull out your card and you're like, oh, we're at table 11. Where are you guys? You're like, we're at table 3. We're at table 4. Oh, we're at table 4. We're at table 11 too. And you realize all your friends are sitting together but you. And in those moments, I want to try to switch cards. I want to make the bride and groom wrong. I want to... Let them. Let them. It's their wedding. Let them do what they want. Instead of feeling hurt, instead of feeling bummed, instead of looking over that table across the dance floor longingly and thinking, why the fuck am I with the second aunt and the cousins? Oh, I know, because I can talk to anybody. I can see it right now. They're sitting there. Oh, Mel and Chris can talk to anybody. We'll stick them over here. as I'm looking longingly across the dance floor and I'm making up a story, they're having way more fun. No, let them. Let the bride and groom do what they needed to do. Let the friends do what they're needing to do. Just let them. Because does that emotional turmoil that you create inside yourself, does it actually help you enjoy the way? No. Does it change where you're sitting? No. So let them. It's like a form of radical acceptance, and it is hard. It's hard because I think we default to holding on to our expectations or holding on to feeling hurt or wronged or having an opinion about how things should. It's too hot. Why are they doing it? Let them. Let them. If United Airlines wants to board from the back of the plane, let them. Who cares that you paid extra for extra legroom? You're still going to get it. Let them do what they need to do. Here's another comment. A friend told me that she was so upset and disappointed that another friend had gone without her on a trip that she thought that they were supposed to take together. My God, was she fixated on it. She just couldn't let it go. This is the perfect opportunity to tell your friend about the let them theory. Have you heard about the let them theory? When your friend does something that upsets you, let them. I mean, for all you know, it's not that they didn't want to go with you. It's that they just needed time alone. So let them take the trip alone. Why do you have to be so offended about everything? Why do you have to be so fucking hurt about everything? Not everything's that serious or that deep, everybody. Let people do what they need to do. That's detachment. And I think it's very straightforward. You're upset about something. You're talking about something. You're griping about something. You're feeling hurt about something. Use the let them theory. And, just for those of you that are kind of smarty pants and you're going to write in and be like, but what about if you're at the beach and they leave their shoes on the beach and you just let them leave the shoes on the beach? No. You're not upset about it, are you? Of course you're going to turn to your friend and be like, hey, dumbass, you left your flip-flops over there. Go get them. You're not going to let them do that. I'm talking about when you're getting yourself worked up about something. You're getting yourself annoyed about something. And I can give you another example. When I first moved to Vermont, we moved here, in March of 2020, say no more. And so there were travel restrictions for a couple years, and that limited anybody's ability to visit us. But it's now going on Oakley's junior year, and my parents have still yet to visit. And I was really hurt by this and really upset by it, thinking, wait a minute, he's now a junior in high school and they haven't come to see where we live. And I kept saying, just let them. Just let them. They have their reasons. Just keep inviting them and let them. And what I finally realized, because instead of being upset about it, I just had a conversation with my mom about it, is she said, I just don't like that state. And I said, why? And she told me the story about how when she was really little, her parents left her at the family farm with her grandmother, and they went to the state of Vermont with her older sister to do something related to an eye surgery. And while they were gone, my great-grandmother dropped dead next to my mom. And when my grandparents, her parents, came home, one of the first things they said to her is, why didn't you save her? And so when I see that story, I see this isn't about me. This is about something else. Let people do what they need to do. When you give people the space to do things in a way that makes them feel comfortable, eventually they come around. And sure enough, they're going to be here in a month, and I can't wait. But you got to let them. Let them have the space to sort through their stuff. So let's talk about the second way you're going to use this theory. And this can be a little trickier because this is the let them theory. When you really need to take a step back and you got to let people fail. And you've got to give people the room to grow, the room to learn, and the room to take personal responsibility for something in their life. And I'm going to give you a couple examples of this. So when our son was in fifth grade, he went to this incredible school outside of Boston that focuses on language-based learning differences. So like dyslexia, dysgraphia, that kind of stuff. And I'll never forget, they said, if you forget their lunch, don't bring it. They're not going to go hungry, but don't bring it. Because so much of what we're trying to teach them is that they are capable of creating systems to remember things. And if they constantly forget things and you rescue them, they're never going to learn that. It's in the forgetting, it's in the sting, it's in the consequence of not doing something that you learn that this is important to you, and you create systems and processes to actually do it. And so if they forget their lunch, let them do it. If they forget an application deadline for a job, let them forget. Why? Because they needed to learn that lesson. And here's the hardest application of this on the planet. If you have somebody in your life that's struggling with addiction, anybody who has dealt with this will tell you, nobody gets sober until they're ready to. And so if somebody is not ready to go to rehab, let them. If you force them to go, they're just going to leave. If somebody relapses, let them. It's not until they tell you that they're ready for help that they are going to actually use the help that you give them. And this is a really, really, really hard thing to grasp in your life. Let them. Just let them. And it's important because every time that you bail your sister out who's terrible with money and you loan her money, you know what happens? She continues to be terrible with money. Sometimes you need the sting of 11 bounce checks or the lien on the house, which is what happened to Chris and I back in, 2000, whatever. I remember he asked his brother to loan him some money and he said, I'm sorry. If me not giving you this money is the reason why the business fails and you go bankrupt, then so be it. But I can't bail you out. You got to figure out how to do this yourself. He let Chris fail. And it was one of the most important things in the world. Why? Because he wasn't responsible for Chris's failure. Chris was. And he wasn't responsible for rescuing him. Chris was. And when you constantly rescue people, you're teaching them that they're not capable of rescuing themselves. And so the next time you get that whiny phone call from somebody that needs money or somebody that forgot something or somebody that wants to transfer yet again, don't control the situation. Simply hear them out and say, if you want to do that, great. I'll support you by cheering you on. But you're going to have to do the paperwork. You're going to have to figure out how to get out of debt. You're going to have to come to me when you're ready to get clean. You gotta let them do it themselves. And here's one more thing on that. Every time you rescue somebody, you rob them of the opportunity to grow. Every time you step in and you make the problem go away, you make the person a little weaker and more dependent on you. So if you truly want somebody to tap into the strength inside themselves, yes, there is a time to support people. But if somebody keeps relapsing, if somebody keeps forgetting their lunch, if somebody keeps dating the same toxic fucking person, let them. Because eventually it's not going to work. And then they're going to come to you and ask for help. And when they do, they'll be ready to accept it. And, for you people pleasers out here, like Ann Waters, who commented on my Instagram post, she says, but Mel, I'm a people pleaser. And I keep doing lots of stuff for other people. How the heck do I stop doing that? The let them theory. Let them do it themselves. Let your kids do their laundry and have the jeans bleed into the sweatshirts and have it all be that kind of weird bluish gray color. Let them do that. Let them learn that they actually care about doing it right. Let everybody at work go without having their birthdays celebrated. Why do you have to be the one that remembers it and brings all the cupcakes? Just let them. Let your brother host the holidays this year. Why do you have to bend yourself over backwards? Let them step up. Let your friends make the plans. Why do you have to be the one that makes the plans all the time? And finally, work. If you feel like you take on everybody's work, let them do their own job. It's certainly going to be easier on you when you use the let them do it theory. Oh, it's your presentation. You're behind the ball. I'm sorry. I've got these 55,000. I wish I could help, but I'm going to let you keep that on your plate. Thank you very much. And this feels like a really good time to let our sponsors have a little word. So let them tell you a little bit about their cool products and services. And when we return, the third, very surprising way, perhaps the most powerful one, that you're going to use the let them theory in your life when we return. Welcome back. I'm Mel Robbins, and today you and I are talking about the let them theory. It's just the most beautiful, detachment, emotional peace, kind of little tool that you can use to catch yourself when that controlling, nagging, ruminating behavior kicks up inside you, or when you catch yourself rescuing people. You're going to take a step back. You're going to let them fail. You're going to let them drop on their face. And you, my friend, are going to let them grow from it. You're standing by. You'll be there when they've learned the lesson. But for now, we got to let the people in your life fail, fall, do things their way, because it's what is going to help them grow. Besides, it's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is you and your happiness. And that brings me to the third way that you're going to use the let them theory. And this one is really difficult. Let them be themselves. Let's say it again. Let the people in your life be who they are, and let them be who they're not. See, I think that we all make the mistake of getting into relationships, and we're not really in a relationship with the person as they are. We're in a relationship with the potential. And when you focus on someone's potential and you start to try to control and manipulate and want them to reach that potential or change or be different, you're not letting them be themselves. And that not only sucks for the other person, because there's nothing that feels good about being on the receiving end of that. Don't wear those shoes. You need an umbrella. Why are you doing that? Well, you should train with that. You should lose some weight. Why are you eating gluten? Come on. Won't you go to this movie with me? Why do you have to always do that thing? That doesn't feel good, does it? So stop doing it to other people. Let them be themselves. And stop and think. Are you truly in a relationship with the person as they are? Or are you in a relationship with who you wish they were? And you know that that's true if you're constantly in your mind griping about what you wish they would change, instead of letting them be themselves. And if you can catch this, that you're always dating the potential, that you're always in a friendship that you hope will improve, you'll realize that you're not even present with the person as they are. And when you give somebody the freedom to be themselves, guess what happens? You see who they really are. I can think of a lot of relationships that I've been in where I spent a lot of time griping about behaviors I didn't like. And when you distract yourself by griping about the fact that they drink too much, or they have a drug problem, or, they're not as ambitious as you'd like, or you wish they worked out, or you can't stand their short hair and you wish they grew it longer, or you hate their family, or you don't like that thing that they do, or the sex is really bad, you're not really with them. You're so focused on all the things that you don't like and the things that you wish you would change that you're in a relationship with the things you don't like, because that's what you're focused on. And when you distract yourself like that, it keeps you from addressing the reality. And the reality is you're probably not with somebody that you actually want to be with. You've just kept yourself busy griping about what you wish would change and deluding yourself into thinking that it actually might change. It's not going to. You got to let them be who they are so that you can deal with the reality of who someone is. And when you finally deal with the reality of who someone is, then you can make a great choice about who you really are and what you really need. And, there was one thing that I forgot to mention that I think is really, really important, and it has to do with relationships. And one way that we try to control other people is through jealousy. And if this is something that you struggle with, you need the let them theory. Because jealousy, if you're jealous of, let's say, your partner spending time with their kids from another marriage, if you're jealous of when your boyfriend goes off and plays golf with his friends, if you're jealous of when your girlfriend or your wife is spending more time with the kids and they're bonding over, this is a major problem. Because jealousy in this regard, this is your attempt to control other people. Because when you get jealous about your partner spending time with their kids from the first marriage, your jealousy is an attempt to try to get them to stop doing that. And so I want to unpack this because you need the let them theory. You need to let people have their friendships and have their time with their kids and have close friendships with people of the same sex. That's important. And it's important to let them do that without you getting triggered. And here's why. Because when you feel jealous and you're trying to control somebody and stop them from hanging out with their girlfriends or whatever the hell it may be, or friends from their former marriage, and that really threatens you. The reason why you feel jealous is you're threatened and you're telling yourself that they don't love you as much as those other people, or that they're not going to love you if they hang out with those people. And what's interesting about that is your jealousy and your controlling is an attempt to get more love. But it backfires, doesn't it? Because you're not present to love when you're jealous. You're actually present to less control and less love. So if you want more love, which is why you're jealous, then let them do what they're going to do and bring more love to the situation. By letting them do what they're going to do and spend time with their kids and spend time playing golf or spend time on that project that they're working on, you're showing them that you love them as they are. It's an act of love to let people do what makes them feel good. And so, A, you're no longer feeling that toxic emotion of jealousy. B, you're giving somebody the most loving gift that you can, which is accepting who they are and supporting what makes them happy. And C, ultimately, if you keep practicing this, you're going to get what you wanted all along, which is the feeling of more love in your life because you've let go and you've accepted what is. And when you let go and accept what is, that person's going to love you back more. See how this works? Let them. Let them. And the final example that I'm going to give you is let people have their emotions. Let them have their opinions. You trying to control what somebody feels and what they say, that is a one-way ticket to the end of a relationship. So I'll give you an example. Let's say that you and your best friend have started to grow apart. Maybe one of you moved away. Maybe one of you are in a really serious relationship and the other one's single. The patterns of your life have started to change. Hence, your relationship starts to change. You still care about one another, but you just don't see each other as much. And let's just say that your friend comes to you and says, I feel like you've changed. I feel like I'm not important anymore. I feel like I've always been there for you and you're never there for me anymore because you're so busy with your boyfriend or you're so busy with this, that, and the other thing. Let them have those feelings. You don't need to control what they think. One of the greatest acts of generosity and love that a human being can give to another human being is to just listen to what somebody's story is, to witness somebody's feelings about something and validate it. That's it. That's all you need to do. And when somebody is given the space because you let them share how they're feeling, they're mad at you, they're upset about you, they're frustrated with this, they feel wrong, they feel hurt, they feel this, they feel that. Something amazing happens. You learn this skill of being able to detach. You learn how to let people be upset and not put your hooks into it. You learn the ability to have feelings rise and fall. It just happened to me this morning, in fact, because I had told our daughter Kendall, who's home for a couple weeks, that I would love to do something this morning together. And the morning, of course, came and a lot of stuff happened. And then it was 10 o'clock and she was going to help me go through some things in my closet. And she started to go, we got to get going on this, because if we don't get going on this, we're only going to be doing it for 15 minutes. And if we only do it for 15 minutes, I'm going to have a fucking attitude, okay? Because I'm going to feel really pissed off about it. You know what I did? I let her. I let her have that frustration. It was so liberating, because I realize now that I know the let them theory, that I was often engaging in this emotional tug of war with people in my life. They'd get upset. I'd try to calm them down. Then they'd get more upset. Then I'd try to be responsible for why they're upset. Then I'm trying to solve it. Then they're doing, and it just becomes this. Nobody's letting anybody do anything. We're arguing over how we feel. It is so fucking stupid. The let them theory allows you to observe people's emotional distress and let them have it and let you off the hook from rescuing them or being responsible for it. It is such a beautiful thing. That's my gift to you today, the let them theory. Because when you let somebody be free to be who they are in their best and their worst moments, that freedom that you're giving to somebody else, that gift of not controlling, you know what happens? You get a gift in return. You get peace and ease back in your life. Ever since sharing the let them theory with you a few months ago, I have been under just a tidal wave of questions and comments about the let them theory. So today, you and I are going to answer them. And to do that, we're going to go to a studio in Los Angeles where I am taking calls and the phone lines are jammed. And the very first person who is on the line is a guy named Daniel who's calling from Los Angeles. Let's go.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. What's up?
Well, I just have a quick question for you.
Sure.
The let them theory, just a little background. Like growing up, I was always kind of like the peacemaker in our family.
Uh-huh.
And now that we're all adults, we're all moved out of the house, the conflict that arises between us still kind of makes me uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gotten good at like removing myself from other people's drama and not trying to like play the peacemaker in every conflict that comes up.
Great.
But it still makes me really uncomfortable. And I'm just wondering if, especially when, I visit home or they're calling me about each other, what do you suggest?
First of all, I think it's really cool that you have the awareness of the role that you've played in your family dynamic. And I also think it's really cool that you have started to teach yourself how to take a step back. And here's what I would recommend, because the let them theory, when you use it in a situation with family, it's about unhooking yourself from the old dynamic and letting the conflict play out between family members without feeling the need to be the person who's responsible for creating the peace for everybody. So you're doing a great job with that. The second thing is, one of the reasons why you would jump in to try to keep the peace is because the conflict makes you uncomfortable. And so it does not surprise me that when you remove yourself from it, you are still feeling these unsettling feelings. And one of the reasons why you've always been the peacemaker, Daniel, is because when you step in and try to solve the problem, the discomfort that you're feeling internally disappears because you're focused on being a peacemaker. And so the opportunity of growth for you is to sit with that discomfort, to let the discomfort rise up inside you and to notice, oh, here's that thing. This is what would normally turn me into a peacemaker. Instead, I'm just going to breathe for like 90 seconds. I'm going to remind myself that we have been a family that does this forever, and we will be a family that probably does this forever, and that I have decided in my life that I'd rather sit with this discomfort than insert myself into every single issue in our family. And so the more that you just notice the discomfort, you tolerate it, you tell yourself it's going to rise and it's going to fall, and they're adults and they can either figure it out together or they can call therapists and get a professional involved, but I'm done here. The faster that discomfort's going to go away. So that's number one. And I can relate to this because I, like you and like a lot of people, have always felt like it's my job to make my mom in particular happy. And anytime I felt like something was up, I felt discomfort. Like, okay, what can I do to make her happy? Just is the way that it is. And the more that I've used the let them theory to just let her have her own reactions, let her blow up, let her be uncomfortable, let her want to do something that I don't want to do, let her have her opinions. The more I've noticed, wow, I was really inserting myself a lot more often than I needed to. She's not really as unhappy as I thought. She's not sitting around waiting for me to solve this. I've just sort of done this to myself. And so it's been very liberating for both of us because you're involved in the dynamic. Let's get to the second part of the question. What do you do when they call you to gossip? Gossiping, Daniel, is a form of bonding. We strengthen relationships by complaining about other people. And there's a very big difference between gossiping, which is just venting or complaining about something, and sharing a frustration with the specific intention of problem solving and getting advice to resolve something. And so what I think you should do is consider training everybody that you are available for problem solving, but you're not available for venting and gossiping about mom or dad or about the brother or the sister, because that's what creates a toxic dynamic in a family. And so the next time somebody calls you, you can say, that sounds awful. And here's the deal. In order to protect the peace in my life and to hopefully make our family a little bit stronger, I've got this commitment that I just don't want to gossip about each other anymore. I am happy to hear you tell me what happened, and I'm happy to offer up some sort of solution. But I got to pull myself out of this gossiping dynamic because it's not great for our family and it's not good for you. And I just think it's keeping us stuck. And I want something more for us. How does that sound?
Right. I mean, that's very helpful. I think a lot of the conflict is between my sister and my mom, and my sister and I have a lot of the same, experiences with my mom. So we fall into that habit of gossiping really easily.
Yeah.
Where we're, just reminiscing about things from the past that probably aren't relevant.
Same.
I think that's a really, really good call out for me to just notice when that happens and take a step back.
And here's, as somebody that did the same thing, and we all do this in our families, right? Is that the more I've used the let them theory to let my parents be who they are, let them have the discomfort or the opinions or conduct themselves the way they are. And the older they get, the more set they are in their ways. It's a fact of life. The more I'm realizing that I feel that my story about who my parents are or the gossiping or the complaining kept me stuck in an old dynamic. And that the second that I just kind of use this mode of acceptance, they've been this way forever. It's not my job to change them. It's not my job to make them happy. They are functioning adults. The more I realized, wait a minute, they're actually pretty happy. They're like, I'm creating a lot of drama that is unnecessary. And when you unhook yourself, Daniel, I want to offer up a really beautiful possibility. You also create space for someone to show up differently, because the dynamic of drama in families always has multiple players involved. And the second one person is like, I just am not going to participate in this, the person that is stirring the drama doesn't have anybody to stir it with. And your sister can call you and say, can you just help me talk through a response that's not emotional? Can you help me unhook myself? That's a different conversation than, boy, she was such a bitch. Remember that time? You see what I'm saying? The tone and the intention is different. And I would absolutely forward her the Let Them Theory episode, because both of you using it together will profoundly shift the dynamic in your family overall. Okay?
Amazing.
You're amazing. You got this.
Well, thanks.
You're welcome, darling.
I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you. Hey, Jennifer from Baltimore, you're on.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Your Let Them theory has really been life-changing for me.
How so?
I recently left a 21-year teaching career to write a novel. It's something I've been wanting to do for over 30 years.
Wow.
And I know. And it was with the support of my wife, because obviously I'm not bringing in income because I'm writing all day, every day. I'm wrapping up my last chapter of my first draft, which is exciting. people have been very opinionated about this whole transition, most of it good. With my mother-in-law, it hasn't been as positive.
Okay.
My son, who's 11, had told her back in June I quit my job. And I hadn't told anybody, but he's 11. Yeah, her response was, that's crazy. This is ridiculous. And my son, who's my biggest cheerleader, said, it's not ridiculous. I think it's great, which is very heartwarming. But as time went on, I haven't had any contact with her. And apparently she had talked to my wife and was a little upset about the whole decision. So I'm trying my best to be in that let them theory with her, but I haven't seen her since.
How long's it been?
It's been, I think it was back in June that I saw her, around the time that my son had told her.
Okay. So it's been many months since you've seen your mother-in-law, who was extremely critical of your decision to quit your job and pursue your dream of writing this novel.
Right.
And is that a long time for you not to see your mother-in-law?
It is. I mean, they live only an hour away. We usually see them every few weeks. She hasn't come to any of my son's baseball games. I don't know if she's avoiding us. I'm not really sure why that is happening.
Okay.
But my fear is a lot of time because of her opinions, I kind of shut down around her. But at the same time, I don't think this is right that she's expressing these opinions, especially to my child, and just letting her do this. I don't know if I could live with that.
Well, what is it about her opinion that really bothers you?
I guess it's because sometimes she will gossip about other people to me, so I fear that she's gossiping about me to others, but I shouldn't really be concerned about that.
What about her gossiping about you to other people bothers you?
I'm not sure. I guess I don't want people formulating an opinion about me without getting to know who I am. I've been fortunate enough that other family members have not done that, and they've gotten to know me. I don't feel like she has gotten to know me very well.
Okay. So, Jennifer, a couple things. Everybody has an opinion about you, whether they know you or not, right? Like everybody forms an opinion. It's just a fact of life. And the real opportunity for you is to unhook yourself from that concern. And the let them theory is so important for you because your mother-in-law's opinion about your career is irrelevant to you. And I could come up with a couple really positive interpretations to her outburst to your son. One of the positive interpretations is that she cares deeply about you all. She has a deep fear about financial issues, and she's just worried. And she does not know how to process her worry, which is stemming from concern and love and all the beautiful things. It's not an indictment that you're dumb or that you're not going to be successful. It's her fear and her coming out, which means it's not about you at all. And the second thing that I want you to consider, and this is a totally different interpretation because you're in your story that there's something wrong with her having a negative opinion. And the fact is, she just has an opinion that rubs you wrong. She blurted out this opinion to your 11-year-old. And the coolest part of the story is your 11-year-old was like, well, you know what? I think it's cool, which shows you're a fucking amazing mom. Okay, let's just get that straight. And that your son has his own opinions and isn't swayed by what his grandmother thinks and is able to express them, which is a beautiful thing. And then the other piece that I will tell you is, what if what this is triggering is a deep dream that your mother-in-law had for her own life, and she never had the courage to go for it. And when she hears somebody that she knows and loves has suddenly quit a job, which for that generation meant stability, it's what you did, it's kind of what everybody expected of you. You have done something that for her was unthinkable. You have put yourself first. You have put yourself out there as an artist. You're in a marriage where your spouse supports you doing that. Like, that might actually have been something she could never experience. And so you having this in your life is stirring something up in her. Now, saying all that doesn't justify or excuse the fact that she was opinionated about it. It just gives you a completely different interpretation of why people react, especially the people who are closest to us, when we go for something that we really care about. And the reason why is when she hears that you're doing something amazing, you have quit your job, you have the support of your spouse and your son, you are pursuing this manuscript, you're going for it, it makes people look in the mirror and go, well, what am I doing? And so you have no idea what got stirred up other than fear and angst and something else. And being of that generation, she has almost zero tolerance for that kind of emotional turmoil inside her. So she pukes it at her grandson. That sounds like a typical grandmother to me. And if she's gossiping about you, Jennifer, who cares? Like, why do you care?
Yeah, you're right.
And look, it hurts. You want the mother-in-law or the mom who is always supportive and always talking amazing things about you and has your back. Like, we all deserve that. And most of us don't have that because most people are not capable of that because they haven't figured out how to sit with emotions that are uncomfortable. And so we gossip and we snap at people and we say things that we don't mean to say. And then when you sit with that, then just like you, she's nervous to see you.
Right.
And so here's what the let them theory also does. You got to unhook from your mother-in-law. You are now an artist and a novelist who is observing the stories of life and telling stories. And there is something inside this dynamic with her that if you create the space where she can have her reaction and you can have yours, and both are true, then you have this space to be able to then do the most powerful part of the let them theory. You let her be, but then what do you need to let her know? Do you need to let her know that it hurt your feelings? Do you need to let her know that you would love to feel supported in what you're doing? Do you need to let her know your boundaries? Or do you need to just realize that the thing that's actually bothering you is that she hasn't been supportive, period, or that it's been tense, period? Like, it might kind of excavate something deeper.
Right.
What do you think it is?
And it might be deeper because I don't really feel like we've gotten, I mean, it's been 20 years, and I don't think we've really gotten to know each other very well. We just kind of spend time around each other.
Ooh, a lot of us can relate to that. Spending time. Is there something that your spouse is doing or not doing that would help with the situation? Or is this just one of those situations where you need to let her be her and she doesn't have the capacity to show up differently? And you need to let yourself.
Are you talking about my spouse?
No, I'm talking about your mother-in-law.
I mean, my spouse is very into the let them theory, and she's always been like that with her parents. They're going to be the way they are, and she just lets them be.
Yeah.
And I'm not the type of person that likes to stir up emotions, especially when it's not my mom. It's my spouse's mom, and I don't want to like cause any friction.
Well,
so I'm very quiet about everything.
So are you not yourself?
No, I don't think I am myself around her.
Well, that's why you are just around her. And the question is that in order for you to shift the relationship, you have to do two things at once. One is you got to give your mother-in-law the space to have her opinions and to get her feathers ruffled and to get upset about things and to not get hooked into it. And you must give yourself permission to show up as you. And I think that's what ultimately is bothering you, is that you're realizing that you have been just protecting the peace in this relationship. And in doing so, you have started this war with yourself because you know you're not yourself around your mother-in-law.
Right.
And that's something that you can shift. It doesn't require you to express boundaries necessarily. It just requires you to show up a little bit differently, more of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have within you the right and the ability to make requests of your spouse around the way that you could be supported better in this relationship.
Okay.
Okay? Is that helpful?
It's very helpful.
What did you get from that conversation?
That I just need to open up more and be myself and not just quiet myself in situations that might be a little uncomfortable and just show up as me.
Yeah.
And then when I don't feel supported, express it. I don't feel supported.
Exactly. That's it. And then let them support you or not. That's all there is to do. You are responsible for expressing your needs, for expressing your feelings, for showing up as yourself, and for doing what you need to do to create a better life for yourself. That's what you're responsible for. Other people are responsible for their emotional reactions, for their feelings, for their boundaries, for all of that. You don't need to manage that anymore. You just need to focus on being yourself. Fabulous. And I can't wait to read your novel. Good job. I love you too.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let's go. Is it Aaron from New York City?
Yes.
Hi. Hi there.
You're so amazing. I absolutely adore you.
I love you too.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for all of the wisdom you share every day. And I love that you're sharing the let them theory with us. And I'm going to ask you this question, and maybe it's a little bit of like a mirror side of that, but you're just so brilliant. I'm going to go for it.
Go for it.
You know, let people just sort of be who they're going to be and you be you. And I grew up in a really abusive childhood, and it was my job to make sure that my mother was happy, my job to take care of her. So here I am in my late adulthood. I just survived horrible cancer, and I have a new lease on life. And I'm thinking, what would my life look like if I let me? If I stopped feeling like the only way to get love or to be loved or to be treasured or to be valued is to take care of people, to be on the phone at 1 o'clock in the morning, to answer all their questions, to be the problem solver. And, you know, how do I just let people and myself deal with the fact that I'd rather focus on myself right now and give back to myself? How do I let me while I let them?
You just...
Will I ever have a friend again?
Listen, you just actually got the full secret of the let them theory. The let them theory is not about other people. It's about you. It's about how you have poured all your energy, your concern, your time, your brain power into other people. And when you highlight how often you are managing other people's reactions, managing other people's happiness, tiptoeing around the topics, shrinking yourself, bending yourself over backwards to help other people, staying silent, not asking for what you need, showing up when you don't feel like it, doing things out of guilt. When you start to use the let them theory to highlight how often you are resisting the reality of the situation, what happens is miraculous. The more that you let someone be unhappy, the more that you let somebody find support in other places, the more you let somebody throw their tantrums because you're not going to buy them a cell phone, or you're not able to drive them to the airport, or you can't solve all their problems, the more you realize how much time you actually have and how much energy you have that you could be directing back at yourself. And so you just figured out the big secret about the let them theory. The let them theory is when you unhook from other people, the need for other people to be pleased with you, the need for other people to be happy first. And when you start to go, oh, well, I could let them be. I could let them be upset. I could let them figure it out. I could let them know how I'm feeling. But then it's on me. Let me be responsible for my happiness. Let me be responsible for my needs. Let me be responsible for saying no, or saying I'm done, or saying this doesn't work. And then how the let them theory will work with your mom or whoever is now getting the actual new you is they're going to tantrum. They're used to you being there. They're going to throw the guilt at you. Let them. Let them. It's not going to work on you anymore. It's worked for years. And so expect them to throw it at you. Let them deal with themselves. And, you know, I've also said, and I'll say again, that this does have exceptions. We don't let our friends just get behind the wheel of a car after they've been drinking. We don't just let somebody sit in suicidal ideation. We pick them up and take them to the emergency room. We don't just let people, discriminate against others or do something really dangerous. You offer support. You make recommendations. You express your boundaries. And then again, you got to let them again. And so expect your mom to tantrum because she has, through emotional manipulation, turned you into her human blankie. And you're not doing it anymore. Congratulations.
Yeah. I mean, the flip side of let them is exactly what you said, to stop. The challenge is also, who are you then if you're no longer the fixer?
You
and
tell
what's
me.
your value?
Who are you?
That's something I'm going to have to sit with because I've spent my entire life being the fixer. I'll fix it. I'm going to make it right. I'm going to help you. I'm going to solve that problem. And the thought of not doing that is not only what other people's reactions will be, but then now who am I? What's my value? What's my worth?
Is fixing everybody else's life making you happy?
It makes me feel that I matter and that I'm needed.
Okay.
And so, like I said, the flip side of letting them, which is I don't do that anymore. I've even been telling some of my girlfriends who've had the same boyfriend problems for years and years, I love you so much, sweetheart. I'm just not up for the boyfriend conversation anymore.
Great.
If you want to ask about, anything else, but just no more boyfriend troubles. I'm sorry, please get a therapist or find another girlfriend. I'm a little burnt out on the boyfriend problems.
I love that.
I've started to set boundaries. And, two of them have said, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels kind of good.
Mm-hmm. Because you want to know why?
Scary. Will they still love me and call me over for Christmas dinner if I'm not the person who's the on-call therapist?
Well, hold on a second.
I might wind up pretty lonely for a while.
Hold on a second. Here's the thing I want you to understand. That number one, being a really good friend means you're willing to tell your friend the truth. Being a really shitty friend is when you listen to it and then silently complain to yourself about it. And so you just did them a huge favor because there's probably nobody else in their life that is willing to tell the truth, which is you have been stuck in this cycle forever. And I have been a part of this cycle because I've listened to it. I've offered advice. I have offered suggestions. I have expressed my concern. And now I have to tell you, I am no longer available for the conversation. And what you just did is you told the truth, which is what you're responsible for, and now you're going to let them sit with it, which is one of the greatest gifts that you could do when somebody is stuck in a pattern that is self-destructive, which they are. And if telling them the truth because you love them and you're concerned about them and because you also love yourself and need to protect your peace, if telling them the truth is what makes them not invite you to the holiday dinners, then you weren't really friends anyway, because that's not what a real friend would do. And yeah, there will be some space where maybe some friendships start to fade. But what happens if you're willing to believe in it is that you're creating space for people that can have more reciprocity in terms of how you want to live your life and what you want to feel to show up. And what you may find, if these have been friends for a very long time, is that that conversation is actually the catalyst that starts to shift something. And if it means you don't get invited for holiday dinner, that's a really small price to pay for changing somebody's life. And, the other thing I want to leave you with, because I really relate to who am I if I am not just fixing everybody's problems. It is possible to be a fixer and not lose yourself. It is possible to be somebody that helps everybody else without losing who you are in the process. And it is possible to support people in your life and be loving and be there for people and not take on responsibility for all of it. You have just discovered the full secret, which is when you realize you're not responsible for other people's happiness, you are not responsible for other people's boundaries, you're not responsible for managing other people's tantrums, you're responsible for your truth, you're responsible for your needs, you're responsible for expressing yourself, you're responsible for telling people how you feel. That's it. You're responsible for creating what you want. And when you start to accept that responsibility and act accordingly, you will be able to help other people because you're choosing to consciously instead of doing it reflexively because you think that's what you need to be doing to feel wanted and needed in life. I'm so excited for you. I'm so excited for you. Let's go to Liz in New Jersey. Liz, you're on with Mel Robbins.
Hi, Mel. Great to talk to you, too. I'm a big fan. My question for you today is I have dealt with this lately, actually very recently. My parents have gone into a terrible financial crisis due to my father's gambling. And I had to take a back seat to it all. I had to put some distance, like about a few weeks. But every day in those few weeks, I felt like tightening in my chest. I felt like I didn't know what to do. So I finally wrote them each a separate letter, begging them to, try to get some help. As soon as I hit the send button on that letter, I felt better immediately.
Why do you think?
I guess because I spoke my piece. I spoke my truth.
Yeah, you're not responsible for your father's gambling addiction, and you're not responsible for rescuing your mother from it. They're grown-ass adults. And even though you feel like the parent instead of the child in this situation, and even though you love them and your heart aches for them, and you know that any addiction is just masking a deeper issue that your father hasn't dealt with and that your mom and dad haven't dealt with in your marriage, it's not your responsibility to bail them out. It's not your responsibility to change it. It's not your responsibility to do anything except to love them and to be there however it is that you can be there to offer support or offer recommendations. But when we step in and feel the responsibility for bailing somebody else out, we also rescue them from, and we rob them of the opportunity to face the things they didn't face. That's why your father has a gambling addiction, because he has some sort of trauma or some sort of deeper issue that he is avoiding by the rush of gambling. And you not running in and making this your problem to solve might just be the thing that has your dad face what he has not been able to face to this point. And so I'm really proud of you. And I'm not surprised that you felt better sending them a letter and letting them be in the mess that they've created and letting you be with the truth that you feel. And, the truth is you're there to support them, right? You're going to be there to pick up the call or to guide them in the right direction or help them with a Google search. But you're not there to fix this. And that's a beautiful, beautiful distinction. Let's go to Mimi in Canada. Mimi, thank you so much for holding so long.
Hi, this is Nini here.
Hi.
I started listening to you, everything that you had to say, and it has really changed my life. And, this let them theory has helped me so much. I was in a very dark place. It was very uncomfortable. But now I see that the other person sees that it's not affecting me. So they're going like up a notch every time to try to get a reaction out of me.
Mm-hmm.
So like, how long do you let them?
So,
how? Like, I know it's not affecting me, but then if you're living with that person 24/7 and they have to use your special needs child, try to manipulate you because they don't want to see you succeed.
mm-hmm.
And, now I've also put my foot down. I was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm not going to let anything affect me. But then if somebody's 24/7 drilling that to your mind in the background, the background noise,
yeah,
it does have an effect.
So can I ask you a
how
question?
long do you let them?
Let me ask you a question. Yeah. So is this a family member or a spouse or who is this?
Spouse. We've been like separated, but because I'm not yet financially stable, so
Yep.
we're sharing the same house.
Okay.
But that's where the abuse is. And last year I hit my all-time low. I started getting my life together, my body together, my mind together, and now I just launched my business last week, and I'm so proud of myself. But that makes the other person uncomfortable.
Of course.
And they want to break me.
Mimi.
Because they
Mimi.
want to have me and torture me.
Mimi, where else can you live?
Nowhere. This is all I have yet.
I
No
love
other
the
option.
yet. I love the yet. Wait, are you telling me you have no friends? You don't have family in Canada that you can live with?
I don't want to.
Okay, so hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. When I said, who else do you have? You said nothing. This is it. And so I need to be very clear with you that you are choosing to stay in a living situation where somebody is beating you down. And when you answered, I have family, but I don't want to live there. You need to own the choice. And so if you're going to own the choice that you're going to live in the same physical household with the person you're divorcing who is beating you down every day, you need to own it loud and proud. You need to start saying, I could go live with my parents, but I don't want to, and I'm not going to. And I know when I walk in that door, that jerk is going to say something really mean to me because he's hurt and he's immature and he doesn't know how else to do it. And I'm just going to let him say it and I'm going to ignore him. And I'm going to go into my room and I'm going to shut the door. And at some point, he might start yelling and I'm going to let him. But I need you to understand that that's screwed up, that you are staying in a situation where you're with somebody who is beating you down. I would rather see you and your special needs child move out, move in with your family, get into a situation where that is not your day-to-day reality. Because the fact is, while you're in the same apartment going through a divorce, if he has already started acting out, it's just going to escalate. This doesn't get better. And so, please, I want you to consider there are other options. And you moving out might just be what changes the dynamic.
Okay.
What do you think?
I was just waiting till I'm financially stable because family accepting a special needs child, people change. I have lived the reality, I know. it sounds good to have a supporting family, but there's only so much others can do, and you don't want to be a burden on them. That's why I'm like every day working
Hold
as
on.
hard
You're
and
not
fast
a
as I
burden.
can.
You are not a burden if you go to your family and say, can I move home for 6 months while I save some money and get my own place? That's not you being a burden. That is you as an adult asking for help in a situation where you need help.
Mm-hmm.
And they're either going to say yes or no. But even so, in asking, you are signaling to yourself, I'm not stuck here. I can create other options for myself. Heck, there might even be another woman that lives near you that's looking for a roommate, that has a special needs son, that's trying to get a divorce. Like, you don't know because you're not asking. And so I want you to continue to use the let them theory to not get hooked by your ex, who is going to continue to escalate, because that's how he has always controlled you in the past. He can't control you anymore, which means he's getting more pissed off. That's exactly what you should expect. And now let me, meaning let me find another option here. Let me use my brain and get myself out of this stupid situation. Let me find a temporary living situation that's a little bit better while I get on my feet. Let me ask for help. Let me start problem solving. Let me take responsibility for putting myself and my special needs son in a better place, and stop telling yourself the story that it can't happen. I so believe in you. I'm proud of you based on everything that you have done in the last year to pull yourself out of that dark place and get yourself moving again and get this business launched. There is no doubt in my mind you have within you the ability to make this better too, and you will. Eva, welcome. You're on the Mel Robbins podcast.
Hi, Mel. I'm just excited to talk to you. I want to know if you can give me tips or advice on how I can get my husband on board with the theory. I think it would help him not have hang-ups about what other people do, or really think. I think sometimes he overthinks, like, people don't invite me to lunch, or, my coworkers or family, he feels excluded. I'm trying to figure out how to get him involved or adopt this theory for himself.
Yeah, it's a great question, because the example that you used with your husband is one we can all relate to. You see other people going out, you're not invited, and then you start to spiral, and it become more painful because you start to tell yourself, nobody likes me and I must have done something wrong and these people are jerks. And so it just builds and builds and builds. And the thing is that the let them theory works because of a fundamental fact about relationships. And that fundamental fact is you can't force anyone else to change or to do something. You can try. You can try with manipulation, with pushing, with pleading, with trying to be inspiring. But at the end of the day, somebody only does something because they want to do something. Tell me more about why you're worried about your husband and the stress or the pain he's causing himself by being focused on other people's drama or what they're doing.
I just feel like sometimes I just feel like he's overthinking it, and I tell him, like, I think you're thinking about it more than what you're thinking about them more than they are thinking about you, or why you're not included.
Yeah. Tell me more though about,
it's a constant conversation.
It's so it's stirring up his insecurity.
Exactly. I listen and I'm okay with listening, but I just feel like we're not doing anything different. Like, it's always the same thing or pattern with either colleagues or family members. That's always, I've noticed that's a theme with him. Like, that conversation comes up. Sometimes when we're just talking and then it'll pop up.
Well, this is very relatable, because whether you're dealing with a husband who gets himself all worked up about what family's doing or work colleagues are doing or friends are doing, or you're dealing with a child who feels left out at school, or you're dealing with a friend who feels, like somebody just broke up with them and it's never going to work out for them, the stories that you tell yourself are way more painful than the actual thing that's happening. And the danger here, and you're witnessing it happening, is your husband is now stuck in this pattern that people leave him out. And he's stuck in this pattern of seeing all the places where he doesn't belong. And part of the reason why these patterns are so painful is you get stuck in the pattern and you don't realize you actually have the power to change this dynamic. And what you said earlier is also true, that he's thinking about it more than the people who are out to lunch, because you know what? They're not thinking about him at all because they didn't invite him to lunch. And so the fact that your husband is wasting time and causing himself pain by constantly focusing on all the places where he hasn't been invited, or the fact that his, siblings are getting together and they didn't ask him, and all this stuff, it just creates internal agita. And so here's how you get someone else to consider something, because you can't force him. Like, you can't tie him down to the bed and put earphones on him and force him to listen to Mel Robbins. Even if you did that, he wouldn't absorb it, so it's not going to work. But you could say to him, I'm concerned about you. I'm concerned about you because I'm seeing this pattern where you're focused on all of the people and the places where you're not invited, or you're not seen, or you're not respected. And it's becoming a pattern. And I don't want this for you. You're a much more powerful person. You deserve more in your life. And I just listened to this podcast with this woman that has 10 million followers. And I think you'd get a lot out of this chick. And I think this thing that she talks about called the let them theory, I think it might help you find your power and not get so pissed off about this petty, stupid stuff. And if you appeal to his greater self, and if you appeal to the fact that you want more for him, that might inspire him to see more for himself and to listen to the episode. That's how I would do it. And I would appeal to the pain he's feeling and the fact that you want more for him, and that you realize you can't fix this for him. This is something he has to do for himself. But here's what you're going to do. You're going to send him this podcast from this cool chick that will really make him think about this. And second, the next time he talks about this again, you're just going to say, let them, as a cue. And it's going to get really annoying because you're not going to engage in the conversation anymore. You're done with the conversation because the conversation's not changing anything. And so you're not going to engage with it with him. And that's what you're going to do, because that's what you can control. And this is how the let them theory works. You are going to let your husband get upset about what his siblings are doing. You are going to say, let them to him after you've already provided the support of the podcast episode. And then you're going to let your husband be mad that you said let them. And then you're going to let him continue to bitch about what's going on, because only your husband can fix this. And what I want to applaud you for is that you care so much about him, that you want this because you can see how much pain it's causing him. And the fact is, if we all stopped complaining about what's not working, or what other people are doing or not doing, or including us in or not, if we stopped doing that, we would find a lot of free time to make plans with people that we want to hang out with. And that's what's also available here. So I want to thank you for asking that question, because it is so relatable. I wish you and your husband the best of luck. Thank you for shoving that episode at him and seeing if he'll take a listen to it. And you not participating anymore and letting him sit in his misery, that's going to intensify the fire and might actually motivate him to do something about it. Thanks for calling. All righty, everybody. That's all we got time for today. I want to remind you that if you're looking for the original Let Them Theory episode, where I explain it in detail, I give you multiple examples of how to start using it. I talk about the 3 really important exceptions for when it doesn't apply. That episode is linked in all the show notes. You can find our show notes, melrobbins.com/podcast for this episode. And look, the thing that's so cool about the let them theory is that when you realize that the art of letting other people being themselves is the pathway to you actually being responsible for your own life and being fully yourself, that's what the magic's all about. And that's why everybody's talking about this thing and using it. And so thank you, thank you, thank you. So I want to talk about the how. How can we turn inward and start to hear this little voice and then do the deeper work to follow that thread to what the weight may be that you can process from your past to free yourself?
I think the starting place is always just a curiosity about ourselves. And a lot of times, just as a person doesn't want to go look at the trauma, why do I want to go look at that thing that makes me nervous? Or that works very strongly against our curiosity about ourselves. And if we are sort of free to be curious about ourselves, it's not dangerous or threatening to be curious about ourselves. There's so much that we can learn. So just an example can be, what is my self-talk like? What do I say to myself, right? In quiet moments, what do I say to myself if I do something wrong? Or what do I say to myself if I drop something? What do I say to myself if I approach a new social situation or a new challenge? So we become curious about what is going on inside of us. And now we start to put words to things. And sometimes we can do that. We can do it sometimes just by thinking, but it's what we think can kind of go over and over again sometimes in our mind without being super productive. It's not always like that. But when we put it outside of us, it's different, which is why if we're talking to someone, that can make a difference, a trusted other, about, hey, I was thinking about, like, I'm saying this to myself over and over. I realize it's been going on in me for years. Or can we say that to someone else, or can we write it? Writing it down, journaling can make a big difference in that way. And the talking to another person can involve a therapist. I think if someone is having, of course, thoughts that they don't want to be alive anymore, or thoughts that start to be quite severe, then that person should get help, because we want to understand and make sure that we're maintaining safety. So there is a place where professional help is important and is needed. In many situations, say it's not to that level of severity where it's needed for safety, but it can dramatically help us inquire with ourselves. So there's another person who's trained to help us introspect, to help us inquire about ourselves, which is why, I go to therapy. I don't miss therapy unless there's no choice about it. I'm out of town. I just simply have no two ways, because even though I can help other people do this as a trained therapist, I can't do it for myself. So when people think, I can do some of it for myself. I can introspect. I can think about my self-talk. I can write, but I can't do for myself what someone outside of me can do. Because I lack the impartial perspective of self. I'm impacted by what's going on inside of me as I'm trying to think about what's going on inside of me. So thinking, writing, or the therapy process can help us understand ourselves so much better, and the change rides on the back of understanding. We're trying to polish the hood instead of looking underneath at the engine. I believe that we are capable of understanding ourselves so much better than we do. The world kind of collaborates with the shame in us and the fear that says, oh, just look the other way. And it's really the opposite of what leads us to health, which is part of why you and I are talking about it today, a part of why it's so important.
Well, and it's also why I want to take a highlighter and make sure that as you were listening to Dr. Conti, you had 2, maybe 3 super important takeaways from what he just said. Number 1, that just thinking about this can sometimes lead to you spinning in circles. And so there's an enormous benefit to you getting those thoughts out of your mind and onto paper, or speak them out into the world. The second thing that you said is, if you can have access to therapy, that's a fantastic thing, because, just like the example that I gave earlier when I was saying, our daughter was telling herself, I'm never going to find anybody, and I'm not this, and why does everybody, and I'm not good looking, and I'm not that, and I'm not the other thing. That when you're outside and you're objective, you have this perspective that the person that's living with this little voice doesn't have. And so there's something beautiful about speaking it out of your mouth so that you can now analyze with somebody else. But you also said something, and you wrote about this in your book, and I think it's super important, that just talking about it with a friend or a loved one and having somebody that you feel safe with, that you can share your experiences with, that it normalizes it. It makes you feel that sense of relief, and that can be helpful to somebody if you can't afford to go to a therapist. And so don't do this on your own, because talking to a friend or a loved one about the little voice in your head and how you see the dots starting to connect can provide you the insight and self-awareness that you really deserve.
Yes.
Yes,
absolutely. Absolutely.
Is there anything else that you would add to that?
Well, I think we can get perspectives from outside of us. So imagine in the example where you were citing your daughter saying, no one wants to talk to me, or I'm not good enough or attractive enough. And let's imagine if a person feels that way, we can very rapidly start making self-fulfilling prophecies without being aware of it. So someone who feels that way is often diffident, is their head is down, they're behaving in ways that may make them much, much less approachable. Then no one does approach them, right? And then they find confirmatory evidence that they're not good enough, and then they're looking down more next time, they're more avoidant next time, and this can get people into places that can at times be hard to get out of or to understand, because we're often not aware of how what's going on inside of here affects how we present ourselves in the world around us. That person who keeps having a negative experience with a boss over and over and over again, may not realize that they're inadvertently fostering exactly that. They're behaving in certain ways that are diffident, that are avoidant, and then there's a repetition. So we can look across life situations, but we're not necessarily the best at observing ourselves of, how am I in the world? And I mean, how many times have I heard a person say, oh, no one wants to talk to me, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not attractive enough, or this or that. And then when you get a little bit more information, oh, since that breakup 2 months ago, every time they go out, they're kind of like this.
Yeah.
And their friends see that, right? But maybe people haven't talked about it. And a lot of times that's the case, where people around someone haven't talked to someone about something that's very clearly evident. And if we start being more curious about ourselves, talking to trusted people around us, it's remarkable how much we can learn about ourselves. Someone who will tell me that they feel very ashamed of themselves, and they've done something terrible, but they have been assaulted. Right, so they're kind of like the example that you gave, which happened throughout life, and you would say, well, what might you say to another person? Or there's another person coming in who was sleeping when they were assaulted. Can you stay around and tell them just how awful they are? Right, and it's a way of getting out of ourselves, because we make ourselves special in ways that are not good for us. So this is, don't make yourself special in ways that are not good. If anyone else would be off the hook for something, or gosh, we would have sympathy and compassion. We'd want to bolster that person. Like, why am I the exception, right? So we can look at ourselves through a fair and equitable lens if we come at it that way. That's the basic premise behind it. But that's part of the premise of inquiry in therapy, and also what it is like if we're just talking to someone trusted around us. Is I don't want to go tell someone, here's my story of why I'm so bad, but like, here's a story of how I can really think that, and that can go over and over again in my head. If I'm curious about it, boy, that conversation is likely to go well, because I'll learn from me while I'm talking, right? And if I'm talking to you, boy, I'll probably learn from you too. And I'll open up also for you to talk to me, right? Maybe then you talk to me about yourself, and that's good for you. And, there are ways that we can, through trusted communication and communication in the service of understanding and helping, we can be so much help to one another in ways that we just often aren't. Often not because we don't want to be, but because the opportunities aren't there for it. Nobody raises something. It's just not talked about. I mean, it doesn't have to be like that.
When you start to identify that little voice and the weight that it's tied to, how do you train your mind to default to something else?
Well, so there's a lot of answers to that, potential answers, depending upon the person, their underlying mental health, what that thing is, how pervasive it may or may not be in their lives. Is Is it reflection? Is it writing? Is it a therapy process? I mean, there's a lot of answers to that, and often the answers also include behavioral change.
Yeah.
So if I think I'm a loser because I'm not healthy enough, some aspect of that is behavioral change, is realizing, I can get myself out of bed 20 minutes earlier and go for a walk around the block. Like, I can do that. And then getting myself to do that, which then bolsters me. So there's behavioral change and there's what goes on inside. But I think an important thing, an extremely important thing to say about the question you asked is that when something has been with us for a long time, it doesn't change overnight, because we are also creatures of habit. So I give this example a lot, that if you and I just chose a word and we decided, let's choose a word and say it 1,000 times, right? Then you'll be thinking about it this evening. I'll be thinking about it this evening too. If we say it 5,000 times, it'll be on our minds in 2 days, right? So we have to understand that these negative pathways, they will atrophy. They can and will atrophy over time, but they don't go away all at once. And because we live in a world that often wants rapid gratification, and a medical system that is like, no matter what's going on with you in many scenarios, okay, you get 10 sessions of, of a certain kind of therapy, and everyone's supposed to be better afterwards. So this drive towards rapid gratification, and these expectations that we're just supposed to be able to change things, which I think also come from how the mental health systems that allegedly are treating us and often don't do a good job of it approach us, create a sense of disappointment of, why am I still thinking that after I've already been through 3 weeks of therapy about it? Well, the answer might be because you've been thinking about it for 7 months or 7 years, right? Or in some cases, 7 decades. So we have to have a framing that's realistic, because it may be that a 20% change in the frequency of saying that negative thing to oneself over a couple months might be an amazing achievement. And that achievement is leading towards that thing going away. But we get so impatient and we don't have a framing of, what should this require of me? How long should this take? What are these neuronal mechanisms that are forces of habit that guide so much of what goes on inside of us that can be changed, but not rapidly? So I think, again, understanding is of such importance, and having rational expectations. So I very often will want people to understand, we can change this, right? But it's going to take us, I'm not sure, I might say, it's probably going to be in the 4 to 6 month range. Like, we can really get our arms around this, and I want, and hope that things can start improving a couple weeks down the road. But, it's a several month process. Like, let the person know that, because so often there's just a reflex that says, hey, somebody threw a medicine at you, right? And that medicine's supposed to make you better, right? Let alone if it's like a couple therapy sessions and that's supposed to make a person better. We need a rational framing for what's going on inside of us, and to plot out, how do we actually get to change?
Well, I think that's good news. Because because if you have a level of patience that you bring to this process, you're giving it room to work. And I will share personally that even just identifying the fact that this was a reflexive habit of mine to tell myself someone's mad at me, even just identifying it, like, oh, there it is again. Oh, interesting. Oh, wow, there it is again. Oh, how could the person in front of me in the line at the coffee shop be mad at me? I haven't said anything. I'm standing. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, just, there it is again. And so the process alone of starting to see this is rewarding in and of itself.
I think I want to highlight when we talk about having the courage to look at ourselves and how hard it is. You think about the example that you gave. You could have felt bad about feeling bad. Why am I feeling this way? I wake up and no one's here. I feel this way, or am I saying feeling bad things about them, that my husband would feel that way about me? And think about how many ways you could just feel bad about that and have shut it down. Right? So it takes courage and curiosity to not do that. And I just think that part is so important to emphasize, and that we can start doing that. We can start feeling better, doing better, emboldening ourselves just by doing small, nice things for ourselves and for other people. And it may sound trite, but it is not, right? To a good hand. Say if you're in that line at the coffee shop and somebody drops something, you know, to pick it up for them, or to give them a smile, right? Or do something nicer for ourselves, because we often self-punish. And if I don't feel bad about myself, I'll just walk that distance in the rain instead of putting an umbrella up. Like, we do a lot of these things to ourselves where we could just in the moment just be nicer to ourselves, more considerate to ourselves and to others. And that starts empowering and emboldening us to do that, to see there's enough good in me that I can give somebody a smile, I can give somebody a helping hand, or I can even be a little nicer to myself. And it may sound small or trite, but I promise that it is not. And it's often that gets the ball rolling towards something maybe more difficult, like looking at something that I know is on my mind a lot, but I've been scared to look at. So I think we can start in simple ways, simple goodness to self and others.
That example of putting an umbrella up was so poignant, because I think of how many times I've had an umbrella and I've just been like, no, it's okay. Yeah. I carry the umbrella. I walk a couple blocks. I pop my collar. I sort of hunch down and I take the drops. And that moment where you stop and put up the umbrella, it is important. And I keep thinking about this visual of the raindrops being like the negative beatdown.
Yeah.
And the act of popping up the umbrella as a way to just have yourself not have to hear it.
Yeah. I really do love that, because, you know, sometimes we'll say, to hell with it, you know, like, but like the idea, I get the umbrella up, but to hell with it. No, that's actually to hell with me.
Yeah.
Right? So we want to stop and think, like, well, if I'm thinking to hell with it, what am I really thinking? To hell with me. I'm not worth getting the umbrella out, right? And it's awareness like that. No, I'm going to stop and I'm going to do that. I'm not going to say the hell with it, to hell with me. I'm going to make some protection, makes it just even make a little bit more pleasantness or anything positive for myself. And I love that way of then the umbrella is shielding us from, you know, the negativity, because we've had the wherewithal inside of ourselves to do something small but meaningful for ourselves. Yeah, I think that's a powerful way to move that example forward. I like that.
It's beautiful. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.